All right. So today we're going to talk with Mina about the facts and maybe some myths about reverse mortgages.
Reverse mortgages have a bad reputation. Most of it is, I think, because of lack of knowledge around it, but also there was some shady shit going on.
Right.
Shady stuff going on.
You can say shit.
I can say shit. Okay. There was some shady shit going on when there was a lot of shady shit going on with mortgages all around, right? So reverse mortgages are actually a really great tool for our kupuna, or elderly in Hawaiian, to tap into the equity of their homes. You spend a very large percentage of your life paying into your mortgage and making on-time payments, and then you really don't get to tap into that equity when you really need it. I think when you're older, and maybe a lot of the clients that are doing reverse mortgages are only on Social Security, and it's just not cutting it. There's a lot of different things that you can use the proceeds from the reverse mortgage towards. There's a couple of different types of reverse mortgages, but the most common one is FHA backed, or backed by HUD, the Federal Housing Authority. FHA, which is called a HECM, that's probably the most common one. There are other proprietary HELOC, it's not a HELOC, reverse mortgage products that are available that fall outside of the HECM box for FHA. But essentially, like, all of these years that you're paying towards your mortgage, and historically and traditionally in Hawaii, we actually rank, I think they just published a report that says Hawaii ranks number 10 in the nation for most amount of equity in their home.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's 58% of homeowners have at least 50% equity in their home.
Good to know if
Did
you're
you know
thinking
that?
of selling.
So within the last 3 years, as everyone's aware, COVID really gave us a little shock in the home appreciation world. The home prices have appreciated, I think, at a higher clip in Hawaii always, but COVID really boosted that across the nation.
Yeah.
I think home appreciation in the state of Hawaii was up 39% in the last 3 years.
Wow.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Another fun fact.
Another fun fact. So you have all this equity in your home, you're retired, you're making $2,000 a month in Social Security, and you live in Hawaii.
Right.
How can you tap into that equity? I think there are options like a home equity line of credit that I'm sure you've heard about, HELOCs, but you have to qualify for those just like you do a regular mortgage. So if you really don't have the income to support it, you won't be able to qualify from a traditional standpoint.
Okay.
So then what are their options? I think what's fascinating about the reverse mortgage, it's negative amortization. And so what that means is you pay no mortgage payment.
Right.
There's a certain interest rate that you're getting on the reverse mortgage, and that interest and your payment is basically accruing. So your balance is getting bigger. And I think anytime nowadays when you try to explain that to someone, they immediately think that's a scam or there's something really wrong with it. But it's a lot simpler than people think, because you really are, you're preventing yourself from having you're excluding yourself from having the requirement to make a payment, which means the money's not coming out. You have a ton of equity in your home, and you're basically eating away at that equity. But a lot of people a lot of seniors who utilize or take advantage of the reverse mortgage, they don't necessarily have a lot of choices. Right? It is kind of a plan B situation. You don't want to necessarily eat away at your equity, but if you don't have savings, which a lot of people don't have retirement accounts, a lot of people haven't saved enough to retire comfortably. And what a lot of people haven't budgeted for, even if they do have retirement, home care.
Right.
Most people nowadays want to live out the rest of their days in their home, in the comfort of their home, right? I had no idea how expensive in-home care was. Do you know?
Was it like $5,000 a day or something crazy?
That's too much math. What is that per month?
15 grand.
They're paid hourly, but they live in your home. Yeah. So then it's not a 40-hour work week.
Yeah.
So they're paid anywhere from, I don't know, like $20 an hour to $30 an hour. And you're easily looking at, the lowest I've heard is $10,000 a month. And the highest I've heard is $24,000 a month. That's going to eat away at your money extremely quickly, right? Depending on the type of care that you need. So that's probably the most common reason why I see people inquiring about the reverse mortgage. But you can use it for anything. It's a very flexible product. You can use it for home renovations. You can use it to purchase a new home. Did you know that?
I did, actually.
There's a couple of different ways to receive that reverse mortgage money too. You can get it as a lump sum. You can set it up as a monthly installment or disbursement. You can set it up as a combination of the two. The most flexible way is going to be the line of credit. So
Yep.
it works very much like, think of it like a giant credit card. You have a ton of money to utilize, but you only get hit for the interest on the amount that you've actually drawn on. So if you get approved for a line amount of 300,000, you've only used 50, you're only getting hit for interest on the 50, right? And so that from that perspective too, I think it's most advantageous, but also the flexibility of being able to draw from it whenever you want and being able to draw for any reason. They don't regulate what it's for. There is a single purpose reverse mortgage too, but it's the most restrictive, has the least amount of fees. It's the cheapest, right? So the more flexibility you want, the more fees are going to be incurred.
There's an age requirement, right?
You have to be 62 or older to qualify for the FHA one. There are some private ones that will go as early as 60 to be eligible, but you have to be 62 to be eligible. And to keep things simple, the younger you are, the less you can borrow.
Right.
The older you are, the more you can borrow.
So if someone's married and say someone's 62 and then someone's like 55, they can still do it because one of them is, they don't both have to qualify, right? Just
Correct.
one of the partners.
One of the spouses, one of the borrowers needs to be 62 or older to
Right.
qualify.
Okay.
Or 60, depending on the program.
Okay. My other question was, you had kind of touched on using it to purchase another property. And okay. Well, because I took that CE class,
Okay.
I know that you have to have 50% down to do it.
Yeah, so
Right.
you have to have 50% down, and the reverse mortgage makes up the other 50%. Honestly, know too much about it, so I don't know if we want to include
We're
it
not
or
going to talk on that then.
But when I
Yeah.
heard it or when I read it, I was
Right.
like, and maybe you know more, like what in your CE class, you have a home that you own with equity, you're
Right.
selling it.
Yep.
And then you're purchasing one.
Mhm.
You put 50% down from the proceeds of that home, or you have to come up with it yourself.
No, yeah, you take the proceeds from that, roll it in. It's basically like refining, but refining with a new home. So if you were going to buy a home, say you own a home that's $1 million,
Yeah.
and you're almost paid off.
Okay.
So say you owe like 200,000, right? So that would give you ideally 800,000 in equity, just roughly. So you could turn around and literally buy a home that would be technically 1.6 million.
But what I don't understand about that is the reverse mortgages don't let you borrow 100% of your equity.
Right. So it would be what, 80% of 800.
So then
Which would be
what I read
640.
was that the reverse mortgage makes up the other 50, which would give you 100% financing. That's why I'm not talking about it, because I don't understand it.
Wait, say that one more time.
They said if you put 50% down, or you have
Right.
to put 50% down, and the remaining 50% you can
Right.
get the reverse mortgage. That would leave you with 100% financing.
Well, no, not really, because you're taking the equity from your home. So you're only financing.
50% down.
Yeah.
You're only financing 50%.
Right. So the
got
bank
that.
is, so the
Yeah.
bank is basically carrying
Only 50%.
the 50%,
Because you paid
which
50% cash.
it's going to be
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
And another thing that they talked about was, and I should have brushed up on it because it was a lender that did the class.
Do you remember who they were with? Is that all they did?
He specialized in that. Yeah. I can look it up if you want. He was great, actually. He was a great guy. But he said that sometimes what people will do is end up like you could buy an investment because it's basically your equity.
You can buy an investment property with it because you can do whatever you want once you've gotten approved for the line of credit.
Right.
So yes, you could, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like most people who are taking out home equity or who are taking out the reverse mortgage don't have like extra play money to buy investment properties, but you could. I think that's what we would call a hack.
Well, so here's the thing. So what if it's an older person married to a younger person wanting to set that person up
Yeah, or
for
even
success,
children.
right?
You could.
Yeah.
Right? So you're eating away, or you're using the equity in your primary residence to use as a down payment, and you're skirting the requirement to have to make a payment on it, essentially. But
Yeah.
yes,
So you could have an investment property and then your income from that is paying towards the mortgage.
Yes, and I think we're talking more like out of the box solutions at this point, because the primary reason that people take out the reverse mortgage is because they don't have money for day-to-day expenses, basically. So you could use the reverse mortgage to purchase a home as long as you're putting 50% down. So you're selling your home, you've got enough equity in there, you have at least 50% down for the home that you're purchasing, and then the reverse mortgage will cover the other 50%. Just thinking about like all of the different needs that seniors have or challenges that they come up against, people who want to stay in their home, but maybe it has a lot of stairs, or
Right.
maybe it's not as accessible as they'd like it to be able to live in it for a very long time. Even using that money to completely retrofit the home so that it's comfortable for them to live in. Like all of that costs money, even if they didn't need the in-home care. But you can get really creative with those funds, including purchasing an investment property. But it's a very unique product that I think has gotten a bad name over the years, but it's actually a very cool tool to be able to use.
Right. So say someone does do their reverse mortgage and they live to a ripe old age of like 110, right? And they still have a surviving spouse. What happens? Does the bank take it? Because I know that that's like the big misconception.
Yeah, so a lot of people think like if I do a reverse mortgage, then the bank owns my house. So that's not the case. When you do a reverse mortgage, you still maintain the same way you're holding title, including if you're holding title and trust. You still own the house, or whoever's on the title. They still have the lien against your house.
How do you get rid of it?
There's a couple of different ways. You can refinance it just like a regular mortgage.
Oh, cool.
So you pay off the balance. The balance is grown, right? Because
Right.
you're taking the neg am that we talked about. So you can refinance it into a regular mortgage again. You can sell it. And if you have enough equity to pay off the balance, you can pay it off that way. I just recently closed, like 2 months ago, a granddaughter. Her grandfather had a reverse mortgage on the home, and that's how they were paying for his home care. So same situation.
Yeah.
And he's kind of getting to that point where he's getting close to end of life. And so the granddaughter, who's been his primary caregiver, she's like, well, how do I keep this house? I want to keep the house. And so we were able to do a deal where we had her purchase the home from him, and she had to get approved for, at a minimum, the amount that the reverse mortgage is for, the balance of the reverse mortgage. So we were able to do that successfully, but that's another thing to bring up. It's not always the seniors or the kapunas that come to us with these questions. A lot of times it's the children or the grandchildren who are starting to look at the situation and the estate. And a lot of times when there's real estate involved, that's one of the first things that they look at. And sometimes they know there's a reverse mortgage on it, and sometimes it's a surprise. And what you don't want to do is not tell anyone and then have that as a surprise when you've already passed. So there's nothing bad or wrong about getting the reverse mortgage, but I think communicating that to your children is not a bad idea either, so everybody knows how to prepare for.
So the guy that did the class, he actually gave some examples of, there was a lady who basically was fixed income. So $2,000 a month was what she was getting. And her mortgage was like $1,800. And so that left her $200 to eat, pay utilities, and all these other things. So based on that, she did the reverse mortgage, and it basically freed up $1,800 a month for her to actually put food on the table, pay her utilities, and actually maybe do something fun and enjoy her life.
Yeah. It's a very liberating, it's a phenomenal tool for people who are in a situation where they are having a hard time with just day-to-day expenses.
Right.
And the income qualifications are super minimal. You have to have some income, and you have to be able to show that you have the ability to at least pay the property taxes and the home insurance, because those are two things that could legally foreclose on your property if you were delinquent on.
Right.
But beyond that, you're not required to qualify based on traditional income guidelines.
Okay. And you can make payments, right? If you, for some reason, wanted to make payments towards it?
Yeah, there's no prepayment penalty. There's no, funny business going on there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can certainly, and that's like most common with the line of credit. Like you can use it and pay it down and use it and pay it down if you wanted to. It's just most people in those situations where they're utilizing a reverse mortgage, they don't typically. That's just the reality.
So what are some of the pitfalls of reverse mortgages?
I think one of the things that we can't really control or predict is home prices, right? Home prices and equity. So there's a formula that you have for based on their age and the interest rate and the value of the home and the equity in the home based on how much they can borrow. And it's a pretty conservative calculation.
Right.
But if home prices were to take a dip, there's a chance that you could be underwater on your mortgage or on your home. FHA's HECM product actually has a pretty interesting feature where based on whatever interest rates are at that time, the line actually will increase annually. They back that, they insure it, and they guarantee it. One of the many things that are different, I guess, is that they cannot reduce or cancel or shut down or close your reverse mortgage at any point in time.
Oh.
That's the risk that's placed on the lender and the insurer when they do these, but it's a very interesting product.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. So it's supposed to be increasing marginally annually. And if that, because the theory is that every year home prices do appreciate. And if they do it based on a conservative calculation, but your line does increase year over year. And it's not for every single product, but the FHA product that is most common has that feature.
Okay. So what are some of the other questions that people ask? Like concerns that they have?
I think the main concern is they think the bank's going to take their house. And while that's certainly a possibility if you cannot pay it off, right? Or if you pass away and there's nobody to purchase it from. The bottom line is the bank wants to get paid. So as long as they're paid for whatever the loan balance is, technically you own the house. Title hasn't changed. You're still on title and you're still the owner of the home. So if you have a reverse mortgage, make sure you have a plan for who's going to be taking over the home and the mortgage when you do pass.
So what does that look like? Best case scenario, there's still equity that you haven't used your balance, right?
Yeah, and they're never going to let you borrow 100%, right? It is at that given time. So if in the very unlikely event that home prices decline year over year over year until you're at a point where you're underwater, possible, highly unlikely. But yes, you should have equity in your home by the time that you've passed.
So say, for instance, you pass away and the house, there's the house. So either a family member, can you have someone else on the deed?
That's the thing. Like, it goes a lot further back. You just did a will. Good job.
Well, thank you.
Do a will.
Yeah.
Have a trust, right? Have a plan. The house is, regardless of whether there's a reverse mortgage on it or not, it still has to go through the same steps. Right. So if you haven't deeded it over, you don't have a plan, you don't have a will, you don't have a trust that you've put it in, then it has to run its course.
Right.
To go to probate. There's a lot of things a lot of pain that you can save your heirs, your children, or whoever you're passing your home on to, and your assets, not just your home.
Right. By
having that plan. At the end of the day, I guess, whatever course it has to run, if you get the house deeded to you, for instance, or your trust or will, the directive is that the home goes to you, you have to be able to refinance. Because I don't think that this is under the assumption that you don't. Actually, I assume that you can't take money from it once you've died. Like, stops.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
That's a question.
Yeah, no.
I learned?
Yep.
That would make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once you pass, you can't draw from it anymore. So you're stuck with the balance. And if you've been deeded the home, you have a choice. You can either sell it and pocket whatever proceeds you get from it after the reverse mortgage is paid off. If you want to keep the home, you have to refinance it.
Right.
And you can refinance it if you can prove ownership. So that's all the before that has to get done. So you have to get the ownership of the home first.
Right.
And then you can refinance it. You have to qualify to refinance it for that amount, whether it be your new primary residence, second home, or investment property.
Right.
And then you can refinance it and pay off the reverse mortgage. If for any reason you can't sell it and you can't pay it off and you can't refinance it, that's the situation where it goes over to the bank. But that's the situation regardless of what kind of mortgage you have on it.
Right. Which is highly unlikely here that you aren't able to sell it.
So buy in Hawaii.
I know it's not a fun topic, and we always try and like be funny and bring humor and stuff, but I think for me and why I like doing these is to bring value.
Totally.
And so this might not be like a first-time home buyer or a new purchase, but somebody's going to know somebody that's going to know somebody that this could actually be a saving grace for somebody in a situation that they thought they basically had to sell their house and put their relative in assisted living or whatever.
Yeah, it's not a depressing topic. It's just that the majority of the people who have to tap into this product is in a really sad situation. It's not always the case, and it doesn't always have to be the case. There's a lot of different creative ways to use this product. But to Linda's point, like there are a lot of people who don't know it exists as an option, and they think the only option is to sell their house. They have no money. They can't pay their daily expenses. They have a home that has a bunch of equity in it that they can't qualify to tap into. Not only do they not have enough money for just groceries and gas, but they have to now sell the home that they've probably lived in for a very long time. The people who don't know about it really do think the only option is to sell.
Yeah.
And then they have to go somewhere else that they don't want to be and rent and then live off of the proceeds of the sale.
Which will go quickly.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah. And you're still paying rent.
And you're paying someone else's mortgage. The most common reverse mortgage product backed by FHA, you are restricted by FHA's loan amount limits. So it's by county, and in Hawaii County, so on the Big Island, you're going to be capped at $517,500.
Oh, that you can borrow?
That's going to be the max loan amount. So that's going to include your existing lien that you have to pay off, and then whatever reverse mortgage. So if you already have a lien on your house, and I would say I have $1 million house, and which every home in Hawaii is $1 million.
Right.
I have $1 million house and I have a $200,000 mortgage on it, for instance.
Okay.
I'm doing this reverse mortgage and I can borrow up to, let's just say the county loan limit, which is $517,500 on the Big Island. Then the $200,000, they have to use the reverse mortgage to pay off the $200,000, and then the remaining $300,000 is what I'm going to be able to draw from the reverse mortgage. Big Island, I feel like it's coming along, it's up and coming, but the loan limits for FHA are super low.